such in the New Yorker and what show was on at MoMA or what was happening in the increasingly worrying political landscape. And of course, there would have been talk of relationship problems, and there were always problems, or money problems, and how busy everyone was. And then the evening would have slowly unraveled, everyone growing louder and more maudlin until it was over, faded into a history of Saturdays just like every other one that came before it, followed by a sharp hangover the next day, a raft of emails and stress and worries about everything back in full view in an endless cycle. Those days were now far behind me, a distant memory of the person I was, tucked away like the dozens of utterly useless high-heeled shoes that sat with all my other earthly possessions in a storage area some 2,000 miles away in Manhattan, collecting dust and losing relevance. In my old life, tomorrow I would be heading to City Bakery for an iced coffee with crippling anxiety about the Monday to come and how I would hang on one more day in a life that was becoming unmanageable to an extent of which no one around me was really aware, unless you happened to be the lucky recipient of a spectacular late-night Laura Galloway Ambien and red wine phone call. I was breaking open and falling apart, and to reveal this weakness and vulnerability to anyone might have caused me to die of shame. But the universe seemed to have plans for me, ones that would take me outside of everything I knew and everything that I thought made me, to a place where I now think nothing of not showering for 3 days straight, and Saturday involves helping chop wood for a fence post, or cutting reeds to dry and braid into shoes for the brittle winter to come, or smoking reindeer meat in a tent called a lavu while drinking bitter black coffee, the smoke clinging to my hair and clothing and settling into my pores. This is a place where you have to be with yourself because there are no distractions, only work and nature and time. It all started with a test. I was at a conference where I received a DNA test in my gift bag. When I got home, I took the test, sent it off, and forgot about it until the result arrived, and I was completely bewildered to read its findings. That I shared some portion of extremely ancient DNA with the Sami people and the Basques, the former being the indigenous Arctic inhabitants of the north of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Kola Peninsula of Russia. It also indicated that I was nearly 100% Northern European, and showed a picture of what I thought looked oddly like a left-leaning penis, Norway and Sweden, on a map. My other 2% was something equally far-flung, Yakutian or Siberian, I can no longer remember which. I didn't understand that either, and wondered if I had a particularly adventurous great-great-great-grandmother somewhere, an idea I relished. This test carried more weight for me than it might for most. The past wasn't allowed in the house where I grew up, and I had been raised understanding that I belonged to someone else. I did not have a mother, in the blood and bones sense. So much of my recent family history beyond my parents and grandparents was unknown to me, especially on my mother's side, and because she died when I was small, I had longed for explanations, or meaning, or any sense of connection for almost as long as I could remember. At the time, I knew nothing about the nascent science behind these tests. I was perplexed by the result, but also riveted on many levels. I loved Scandinavia, and had only recently heard about the Sami people, an entire indigenous group with its own language and culture that existed in 4 countries that were, in part, defined by their homogeneity. I Googled the Sami and was amazed to see pictures of people who looked quite like me, the blonde people at least, with the same slightly Asian-shaped eyes that had always caused me to wonder what surprises lay in my distant origins. I excitedly emailed friends in Sweden and told them about my discovery. "This explains why you were so mesmerized by the reindeer at Skansen," said my friend Henrik, referring to a park in Stockholm where I'd once spent hours watching a herd. "You must go north." For my next vacation, I planned my first visit to the Swedish Arctic, to a small village called Jokkmokk, where a Sami winter market has been held every February for hundreds of years. In older times, it was a way for people to gather.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.